Joe here with Cryptochats. So today we are going to check out the FinTech Product Innovation and Blockchain Technologies event out in Portland. And we're going to take you guys along with us. So let's hit the road.
Use the left two lanes to take exit 299B, then keep right.
Uganda got their entire election on the blockchain. Why are we not doing the same? Why is not everybody demanding this?
The transition of thinking about blockchain as internet money, digital gold, this is my enlightenment moment to see it.
And very famously told him, yeah, it takes a few months and a few $1 million, but anybody can start that.
We've kind of asked, is there a watershed moment for crypto finance and crypto economies more broadly? Has it happened already?
I don't think we've gotten there yet. I think if you look at the World Wide Web, like Tim Berners-Lee wrote the specs for HTTP and HTML in 1990, 91, and it took 10 years, I think, for the first version of the web to get to its watershed moment, which was the dot-com bust. It wasn't the boom, it was the bust. And it was the ones who survived the bust and then who built the next wave, who grew out of that like Amazon, or who built the next wave like Facebook. Those were the ones who really went out and signed up the whole world and kind of changed things, right? Like everybody in 99 was super, super excited by the World Wide Web, but there were 100 million people on the web back then? Today there's 4 billion? So I think we still have to get to that watershed moment where we have a big crisis, it cleans up the whole space, there'll be maybe 10% of the companies left, and the ones that survive and keep building through that and then build the infrastructure for the next phase, that's how we'll go from 100 million crypto users to the Web 3.0.
What I want to ask you all is, do you use patents? Do you file patents for the work you're doing? And secondly, what's your view on what impact that is having? Does it have relatively no impact because what open source people are doing, what people are doing in the open will continue? Do you think it's going to suppress what those developers are doing? Or do you see that as a means for adoption?
The caution about filing a patent doesn't actually really protect you from a whole lot, in my opinion. It's really about a rat race to staying true. These companies, it's so early that they do not have the smarts that these gentlemen do to execute. I'm giving you props, bro. But you know what I'm saying? You're ahead of the game. It goes back to the people question. You have prowess. You have a history. Who's going to try to come up against you? They're just going to wait till you get hot enough, and they're going to get involved. So if you're worried about your idea getting stolen, then the idea is not. I guess really all that sound, in my opinion.
Hi, kind of big picture question. Is the future of humanity transactional, and is that a good or a bad thing? I feel like people in this room are tied together by certain sets of ethics, right? I think a lot of us might have some kind of extropian ethics. A lot of us might have some post-scarcity ethics. I think probably all of us definitely have some egalitarian ethics, right? But it seems like all these things we're building, the top of that pyramid is the ability of agents to have low friction, zero-sum transactions with other agents. Is that where this all leads? Is where this ends is we can transact with each other in zero-sum transactions and that's the most valuable thing for humanity? Or is there another step where we are no longer so obsessed with transactions? I'm really curious about your topic of, are we a species defined by transactions right now, or do we grow out of that somehow, and is that good or bad?
So the humanity as a species, I think, is defined by our progress, right? Sometimes we go back for a few centuries at a time, but we keep going forward at some level. And the blockchain at the end of it is just a technology layer, right? It's a massively important technology layer. It's like the internet. It has the potential to revolutionize everything. But it's not going to change us as a species. If that's going to happen, it's going to be us doing it to ourselves. And maybe we'll use technology to help us, but it's not, the technology isn't going to solve anything, right? The things that we need to solve as a species are climate change, for example, and blockchain. Maybe we can trade carbon credits on the blockchain, and by that way we can help towards that goal. But we all have to decide if we're going to trade carbon credits on the blockchain and build those systems and adopt them. And and make that future. So it's really up to us. And when I say up to us, it means you and me and all of us, right? So I don't see how blockchain helps that, but I also don't see how it hinders that. It's just another additional tool in that. I think, who was it? Gandhi said, right? Be the change that you want to see in the world. And blockchain may help.
Push your minds to the absolute limits here. If you had to think about, we talked about what's going to make blockchain kind of explode and some of the crypto things like that. If you can think of some of the things that might not be obvious, if you each pick one thing and said, this is not anything anybody is talking about. We always talk about the usual things. Something, it could be fashion, it could be political, it could be an asteroid hitting the Earth. Something you think that isn't obvious that might actually completely flip things very quickly.
I think that the specter of another financial crisis is always looming over us, and I think it's an interesting one to consider. It's not as simple to say, though, that if the real world economy crashes, that everyone's going to flood into crypto. I think that's a fantasy that a lot of people hold. But actually, when you look at smaller market corrections and its relationship to crypto prices, we're not seeing that necessarily. But it's interesting as a general sort of thought experiment to think about what does 2008 Part 2 look like today, and how would these technologies respond? And generally speaking, I think that it probably, as trust in financial systems erodes, I do think it leaves people more open to these large-scale changes. Basically, it's like they say, never waste a good crisis, right? I can see some big things happening in crypto as a response to crisis, although it's hard to guess exactly what.
American Express has adopted this within their merchant network, where they're actually using it for data, where they're able to tie in and benefit their merchants to offer reward points. Where do you see that going? It seems like that's their entry level, where that's really based on data and the ability to move product off of shelves, incentivizing it through a closed network. How do you see the application of that on a larger scale?
So once you have those credits, the blockchain really allows you to transfer those credits. So I like to use this autonomous driving example, which kind of takes place in the same vein. You're driving down the road, or your car is autonomously driving, you have billions of weather sensors, and you hit black ice like I was talking about before. Those sensors may be on a certain protocol. They may be on IOTA, they may be on Hashgraph, they may be on whatever. They're making sure that once that car hits that black ice, it corrects it as soon as possible. That's their number one priority. And it doesn't have time to go to the cloud to do that. It has to use edge computing in order to do that. However, inside the car, there's electronic control units that also take place on getting the car to straighten out and all those things. There may be drones, there may be IP-enabled traffic lights a part of it. You may need to use fog computing to communicate with other cars on the road to make sure that they're aware that this took place. The point is that each of these have a different unit of value that needs to be interoperable and translate to one another. And what AMEX is doing is they're essentially creating a permission ecosystem that's closed to create that unit of value, but it's landlocked vertically until they can create a cross-chain interoperable way to transfer that value. But they're preparing for it early because that time is coming. Eventually you can take that and say you could trade it for energy in your house. Right now these stupid rewards programs lock it into an unknown whatever currency to these companies that only benefits them. But eventually you'll be able to trade it interoperably, and that's their play. And American Express is one of my favorite brands, and they're very forward thinking, and they see the opportunity here. And I think that's going to be their play, personally.